Okay, time for another Q&A, all things branding and marketing. And today's question is from Jennifer Little, who runs Little Games. And Little Games features party games for weddings, and they're games for introverts in particular. So she's got a wedding bingo, some other products, etc. And Jennifer, your question is so good and so relevant to a kind of question that I hear all the time, that I think is on a lot of people's minds. So let's just dive in. How do you determine whether to make your visuals completely stand out from the crowd to draw the eye, or stick closer to the popular style because they're the ones that have been working? I'm grappling with this for my Etsy listing cover images, etc. So, such a good question. So, rather than asking that question, I want to ask you, what makes your work special? What makes these games that you create for people unique and different and special in relation to all the other things that are competing for your client's attention, right? So this is kind of a two-part question. One is, what is unique and special and different that's coming from you? And then what are the unique qualities and desires and problems and needs of the largest kind of target group of people that you serve? So that second question can help give you part of your answer, right? So are the people who are planning weddings who are interested in your work, or who you want interested in your work, people who are kind of rebels and they're getting married, they're joining this big kind of mainstream institution of marriage, but they want to do it differently and they want it to be a rebel wedding? Or do you have people who are completely in love with the going trends and they're going to be buying all the mainstream marriage magazines and just totally going gung-ho for all the trends? So that's one question. But the answer to that question doesn't necessarily ever point you in the direction of conformity to those current trends. So if your people really love the trends, they don't consider themselves countercultural in any way with how they're doing their wedding, then you need to do it better and more amazingly than any of your competitors. And that is not about conformity, right? That's about, like, if it's going to be about, if the big trend right now is getting married in barns and, having wedding that feels like whatever, like a farm experience, for example, then you get to just completely blow your competition out of the water with how beautifully you embody all the best things about this trend, right? Or how you approach this trend in a way that's really delightful and that makes it fresh and makes it new and makes it alive for people again. So conforming to the trend, that never ever means mediocrity. It never ever means imitation of what you see out there. It means being inspired by what's out there and making it alive and new, right? If it looks like the people that come to you in particular are wanting to do weddings that are unusual, that are surprising, that are different in any way, which might be like one far end of a continuum. There might be the sort of like people who really want to rebel and do something really wild, or it might just be people who, they're maybe interested in some of the trends and they're interested in putting their own spin on it, right? Whatever that is, if there is some desire not to conform on people's parts, which I'm imagining is the case, knowing you and knowing your work, that then you get a chance to really let your freak flag fly in a way, right? Like, be really specific about the vibe and the energy and the story and the personality of the work that you bring. And this will attract the people who are looking for an alternative. They might not know that that alternative's you until they run into you and they're surprised by you and they're delighted by you and what you are putting out there. So I think it's about getting really, it's not so much conform or not conform, it's get really clear about what makes you stellar, what makes the work that you are providing to people, the opportunity and the experience that you're providing to people, totally unique, totally stellar, above and beyond anything else they're going to find, whether or not that's in the direction of what we might think of as the trends or deviating from the trends. So yeah, maybe get rid of that like concept of conformity in your mind and just go for high quality and uniqueness. Hopefully that helps. Anything else I want to say about that? Let me check my notes. I took a few notes on this. Oh, and you're also selling on Etsy. So obviously, and these are products, obviously the products have to be front and center. It has to be really obvious, really readable. But there's so much you can do to tell the story about the type of wedding that these products exist in. You know, the bingo cards get to be on a table with other objects that might signify, you know, the feeling, the look and feel, and really the brand of the wedding itself. And that's something you can think about is weddings are branded. Like people don't think about it this way. But when we have weddings or we create big public rituals and ceremonies, we are creating kind of a world that people walk into. We're creating a whole environment that will immerse people. It's a world-making activity. I think the most powerful and exciting public rituals and ceremonies have that feeling that you're entering this other space. And certainly people get really into it with, even with logos, with websites for weddings, with all of the decor, the clothing, the music that's chosen. People create this really specific cultural container around this event. And it's as influenced by, you know, kind of deeper cultural influences and longings and, you know, our backgrounds and our ancestry and our dreams and all that stuff, as it is by the crasser kind of, what we think of as a crasser kind of commercial, you know, the kind of commercial forces that are kind of encouraging us to buy this and buy that for the weddings. So I want you to just really dive into what you think about all that and what you're really offering people. And I'm sure you're doing this already. You know, as you dig into the layers of who these people are, who you're calling to your work and who are looking for your work, what are the longings underneath the longings, when people are designing this really important, beautiful public ritual? You know, what are the underlying longings? What is their relationship to this institution and to this kind of visibility and to this kind of world that they're creating, that they're bringing people into? And that would be a really beautiful customer research project for you. I think to ask a bunch of people questions kind of on that level and see what they say. All of this will give you more to work with when you're thinking about the visual world that you're creating around your work. So this was a kind of free range answer with a lot of different directions you could take it, but I hope it spurred some new thoughts for you, and I'd love to hear what happens. And for anyone else watching this video, I'm sure you have similar kinds of issues in your own industry, and I'd love to hear how this lands for you as well. Okay,